Welcome to this week's episode of the Rutledge Perspective podcast. And I am thrilled to have my friend Tobi Brown as my guest this week. You guys are going to love this woman. We met in a mastermind class as we were both getting our businesses off the ground. And so I just can't wait for you guys to hear her story and to hear what she's doing now. And so I'm going to give you a little bit, as usual, of her bio, and we'll include stuff in the show notes as well. So you'll get a chance to do that. So I'll read that and then we'll welcome Tobi. So Tobi Brown's mission is to motivate others to use their gifts and talents to create solutions that serve others well. Her consulting firm, Curated Brilliance, is her vehicle for carrying out this mission. Tobi works with entrepreneurs, event producers, and influencers to refine how they show up so that they can attract and serve the people who will most benefit from what they have to offer. Tobi, welcome to the Rutledge Perspective.
Yay. Hi, Laurel. I'm so honored that you invited me to come and talk with you today.
Oh, I am so excited. I'm like, you know what? I've had Tobi on my list forever. I need to just reach out to Tobi. And there was something that happened that day. I'm like, okay, look, we need to talk and I need to get you on this show. Because I think, the journey, because we had some great conversations, right, about the corporate to entrepreneurship thing. And the journey is so similar, but also kind of that triumph, right? I really think it's important for people to hear that and to hear that it's not been perfect and it's not easy. But if you're sitting in that purpose and sitting in that passion, you just kind of work through that madness, right? Yes. So maybe let's start with this. Tell people a little bit more about Curated Brilliance, and then we'll kind of back into how that started and the name and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, today Curated Brilliance shows up where we're needed. It's a largely referral-based business. Mm-hmm. I've had the honor of working with some pretty significant influencers and actors. And basically at the crux of what I do is to help people communicate their stories effectively. Which allows them to align with the right partners, which allows them mm-hmm. to reach out to their audience. So I always say that I like businesses to have a soul, and that's what I want entrepreneurs to create. So where is the heart? Let's look beyond the commodity and into the heart and soul of your business. So that's what I get the pleasure of helping people to uncover.
Oh, I love that. It's like I tell people, I need you to lead with your heart, but act with your head, right? So don't lose who you are and why you're doing this. Let's just be strategic about it, right? There's a balance, right? So let's talk a little bit about kind of how you got there, how you got to Curated Brilliance. And we had talked about it when we first met, but maybe give people a little bit of your backstory.
Okay, well, let's see, how far back do I want to go? I'll go far back, but I'll make it quick at the same time. So, as a child growing up in Detroit, I always knew that I wanted to be a businesswoman. That's how I would play. I would play business and set up shop at a puzzle table, be moving papers around. And so I'm like, this is what I'm meant to do. However, mm-hmm. Life gets in the way and you start looking at other things. And so you end up on a path that is different from what your little mm-hmm. self imagined you doing. Because, mm-hmm. as we are known to do, we turn down the volume of that intuition and that inner guidance. Yes. And we say, you don't know what you're talking about because that doesn't make sense or dollars. So no, I'm not doing it. So that was kind of where I was. And that's how I ended up in this kind of, circuitous professional mm-hmm. journey, which took me from engineering at Verizon way back in the day to trade association work on the Hill in DC to just all of these things and all of these responsibilities that just kind of tickled what I really feel my superpower, my divine gifts are. Mm-hmm. And so one day I got to the point where I had to make some not really tough. I had to recognize I'm going to use this word because I can't think of a better one right now, but the damaging impact of not occupying your place in the world, like your place, not like a place that looks good. And so I got to that point where I realized that I was very out of alignment with what I could best do and how I could best show up in service in this lifetime. And that kind of created for me a necessity to like get in better alignment with purpose. And so that happened through lots of manifestation and like a semi unbelievable stories about how I got to walk away from my last job and do this, but you know, here we are. So it's a calling, many years in the making, going through that process of learning and doing other things and really getting to that point where you see like, if I continue along this path, I'm going to have so many regrets and I don't want that. So let me pivot into the purpose. So that's kind of what happened.
You know, I love that. And just so many. So I'm like, okay, what do I ask her first? So here's the first thing. You said something that I think is really, really important. You knew you wanted to be a businesswoman from the time you were little.
Yes.
And then life happens and we stop listening to that intuition because it's either, no, that's not right. That can't be right. Or that you're not going to make any money doing that. And we start doing what we're supposed to do or what we've been trained to do. Tell me, let's talk about that, because I think so many people lose that little voice inside that says, no, this is what you should be doing. And some of that is, I want to be a CEO, and that's what they do, right? Some of it's entrepreneurship, but talk a little bit about how you would maybe help people say, wait, pause and get back to that thing that you knew when you were little.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Where do I start? So Laura, we know what we know. Like there's knowing intellectually, and then there's that knowing that takes place energetically in the soul, or however you want to describe it. So if all of us, I'm going to say this, are honest with ourselves, we know that there is that thing, that calling, that unction or whatever it is, that like you are so out of alignment, you're sad, your soul is all crushed. Look how you're showing up in life. You might have success and you can say, I've done this and I can wear this and I've gone to this place, but you know, like that knowing, that like internal knowing tells you that you're out of alignment. And so then we come to this decision point. I'm out of alignment. I'm unhappy. My soul is crushed. What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do? So what we picked up along the way are these belief systems, whether it's from our parents who told us, you know, baby, life is hard, especially for you as a woman of color, like you got a hard way of you. So it's like, but you know, in my purpose, like playing felt like ease. Like there was ease and joy there. Wait, that's not my experience, right? I'm supposed to like be struggling and like scraping and clawing my way to some semblance of a meaningful and decent life. And so there's that, and that's play. That's our root. There's the fear, like, wait a minute. So I came this far, so I really don't want to go back, especially for those of us who came from environments where, you know, they weren't favorable, like poor education systems and just like no amenities. It's just like bare bones. It's like, I don't ever want to go back to that. I really want to like leave this, because at least here I have, you know, this false sense of stability. And then there is kind of that guilt trip, like this would be so irresponsible. You've studied 1,000,000 hours to get those degrees. You've like gone through these processes and you over delivered at work so that you can ascend to some level and you could get an office, hopefully with a window. And now you're saying like, I just want to be at home in front of my MacBook and I'm going to figure out how to show up and serve other people. And so it's like, that's not, no matter how profound the awareness is that you're out of alignment, it does not make good sense to make those pivots a lot of times, especially considering the sweat equity and the sacrifices that have gone into, you know, allowing us to reach whatever level of success we've reached in corporate.
Mm-hmm. God, that's so good, because I just had this conversation with someone not too long ago. It's, when you talk about the Industrial Revolution, right? It was, went through this whole Industrial Revolution. We were building things as a country, right? There was manufacturing and all of that. And then families started saying, but we want our kids to do better. And that do better meant, I don't want you working in a factory, which sounds really good. But the unintended consequence of that is then you had a whole generation of people that blue collar work wasn't good work, that wasn't doing better, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, I think, in communities of color. On the one hand, our parents and our communities are like, run harder, be better. It's going to be tough. Just do it. And you can make it, but, be ready, because it's going to be tough. And I think they did it because they wanted us to work hard, but they also wanted to manage our expectations, because the playing fields were not level, and they still are not, right? But the unintended consequence of that is this training, right? To just harder, better, faster, more, climb the ladder, get the job, get the title, that's what success means. It's almost like you said, this tape that plays, right? That's not necessarily true. It may be experientially factual, yes, but the story in and of itself is not necessarily true. And so that idea of being able to sit into, but this doesn't feel, I get it and I can do it, but it doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. Feels like there should be something else, whether that's a different company, right? A different job, or doing your own thing. How did you kind of get to that conclusion where you're like, I hear what everybody's saying, right? Are you crazy? What do you mean you're leaving? But this is really it. How did you get yourself to kind of just take that leap and say, you know what? No, it's just time. It's just time.
Well, this is where I see a lot of divine help and alignment and synchronicity in this particular part of my journey. So I became a full-time entrepreneur in 2017. Mm-hmm. In 2016, while carrying out my responsibilities for my job, mm-hmm. I had a life-threatening allergic reaction, and mm-hmm. I didn't think I was going to make it back home. I thought, okay, mm-hmm. so this is how it ends. And what I like to tell people is that in those moments, which I thought were my last breaths, which what are you going to do? My mom was still, on this side in the land of the living. Yeah. God, my mommy, because I didn't want anyone else to tell her what happened. And then I was like, and then the dread started. My family. Mm-hmm. And then it was like all the things I didn't do. It wasn't like me applauding or like going like, look, at least you're going out with these accomplishments. It was like, I totally misused this time. And I was like, I know I was meant to do this. So that is the film that I watched in the back of the ambulance. Like, so you're not going to do that business. So you're not going to write the book. So you're not going to blah, blah, blah. Like all of those those things, the soul or whatever you want to say. It was like, you're meant to write. I mean, I'm just going to keep coming back and telling you to.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna get to it, but you don't. Right. We don't. We don't know. Yeah. And that whole lesson where we know like we're mortal. We know that one day all of this is over. Yet we continue to show up like we have infinite time. And so so that kind of started these wheels turning for me. Mm-hmm. Like I enjoyed what I did. I worked with brilliant people in an exciting industry, and I'm meant to do more. Yeah. There is something else for me. This, as wonderful as it is, does not fulfill my purpose. That's not why I'm here. So it doesn't mean it's not a good thing, but it's not my best thing. It doesn't fulfill my purpose.
Oh, I love that. It doesn't mean it's not a good thing. It's just not my best thing. I hope y'all caught that, listeners. I hope you caught that. It's not my best thing. Oh, I love that, Tobi. I love that. And so how, so you're talking with entrepreneurs now, right? And so you're helping people get their message out, and what is their voice and how are they showing up so that they can really step into this thing, right? Step into their best, their zone of genius. as you did this journey for yourself, because we've talked about that. You've had some different lines of business that you've done and some things that were really exciting, some things that you're like, we're going to streamline that a little bit. Mm-hmm. Even talk about that as we walk into that purpose. It's not that we might know what it is, but we don't really know how that's all going to play out. And that ability to kind of remain flexible and listen to what we know we're supposed to be doing, as opposed to then getting back in that trap of, yep, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and here's what everybody says I need to do.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Laurel. So, I mean, don't think I'm firing shots here, but I will say this, and I say this in some of my marketing. There are 1,001 coaching programs.
Yeah.
There are so many systems that are going to get you that $10,000 month and blah, blah, blah days.
Yes.
It's all the things. And this is not saying that those things don't work. This is saying that, and I think you can attest to this, there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts. You can have all the knowledge, pay for all the top-notch programs, but until you go through that process of incubating, delivering that baby, then it's like you've made some great investments. You've gotten so much knowledge, and maybe year 4 or 5, it's going to click and be like, oh, okay. But why did I do that 4 years or 3 years ago? So, so when you get to the point of making that decision, it's like, don't believe the Instagram hype. Sorry, Instagram.
Yes.
Don't believe you just need a decision and a MacBook and a cute desk and a pink pen and winning. I won't even show you what my desk looks like right now. It's not cute.
Right? Yes. Mine either.
So entrepreneurship isn't, unless I'm doing something wrong and I didn't spend all the money in the right places, but it's going to take you a while. So when you say I'm going to be an entrepreneur, you're saying I'm about to start this journey, and recognize that is not the entirety of the journey. Saying that I've decided, this job has ended. Like, my job came to a natural end. And so it was just beautiful, but a beautiful transition. But know that it wasn't like I walked out of there and came here and here's Curated Brilliance and all this.
Right.
The journey is still in progress. It's just, you have to continuously decide that this is what I'm going to do. Just like you got up a lot of times and you didn't want to go to work, and you're like, it's like that. Yes. It's not like a magical land of unicorns. It's very fulfilling. It is, but it's also very challenging. Nobody's, auto depositing money in our account for 2 weeks anymore. So it's like, this feels good. So I'm just going to have to trust this process.
Right.
And stick with it and not come into it with the false kind of fairy tale expectations, like my business is my Prince Charming or whatever, and here's happily ever after. It's not that. It's not that at all.
Not even close. I mean, I remember when I started, because I started in 2018, and I remember thinking, I'm done into 2017. This will be up and running March of 2018. Not only was it not, I mean, it was fine, but it was not a business in March of 2018. It wasn't. It was definitely a journey, and the journey does continue, probably throughout the time that you decide you want to be an entrepreneur. But that whole realization that it's a whole new world. If you came out of corporate, this whole thing about, if you're going to come out of corporate and go do a brick and mortar, okay, well, that's probably a little bit different. If you're really doing a product business, right? Although you still need to think about your suppliers, right? And your service providers, your product providers, your supply chain. You got to think about all that stuff that you probably took for granted when you were working for someone else. But if you're in a service business, that's a whole different ballgame. And so that idea of, it's one thing to say you want it. It's another thing to want it, because we can say a lot of stuff. But that day when nobody's waiting for you at an office and you're just relying on you to get up and go answer that email or put that system in place or figure out what you're going to say or how you're going to do it, the only person that you can count on to do that is you.
Mm-hmm.
especially as a solopreneur, right?
Absolutely.
So thinking about that, kind of how you came into this business, you're really thinking about the journey, getting really clear. What has been the biggest surprise for you as you've been building this business, and even as you've kind of shifted, into curated business, how that's going to be working now?
The biggest surprise, you know, I think I might have two. So
Mm-hmm.
surprise one is, I don't get up and go to an office every day, and I don't have direct deposit, and I'm still here. And it's like, because that's the
Yes.
biggest thing. And it's like, see, my
Yeah.
electricity's still on because I got my fan going, and
Yes.
I'm not hungry. And
Yeah.
so that to me was a surprise, and that was also a huge lesson. And some people say getting out of the matrix, or really just like
Yes.
understanding how imprisoned and limited
Mm-hmm.
our mindsets may have us. We're like playing
Yes.
in these itty bitty games when we have, I don't want to sound cliche, but there's greatness. There's this great gift.
Yes.
And that thing that keeps calling you is because there's a need for it. And there are people's
Mm-hmm.
lives who can be improved if you show up and take your rightful
Yes.
place. So that was a big surprise, like intellectually, like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
you don't go to work and you don't do this, then you're gonna die. Like,
Right.
like, but it's like, but okay, wait, but so we put so much faith in this job, in these jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and what happens when you've given your 20 years and you're no longer needed?
Right.
You're going to have to
Right.
separate from that position either by voluntarily or by force at
Mm-hmm.
some point. And so
Mm-hmm.
there has to be life beyond that. And it's
Yeah.
like, will you allow that? Will you accept the fact
Right.
that there's another way?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the second surprise is how dynamic business is. It's a living
Ah,
thing. So it's not like
yes.
you sit down with your Word document, you get all your packages together. My ideal client is this person, and woo, let's go. No, nobody
Yes.
bites. So what's that iteration? So just the iterative
Mm-hmm.
approach, which also is a segue into other lessons to like embrace
Yes.
lean methodologies. Don't listen to one person and buy all
Mm-hmm.
the things, like refine, test, refine. So it's
Yeah.
experiment of sorts. Even though you're in your purpose, it's like, but how you
Yeah.
need to show up, that's the science part of it. So you have to balance the science and the soul so you can show up and do what you're meant to do.
Absolutely. And that is, I'm telling you what, that really speaks my language, that second surprise, because patience is absolutely not my superpower. It is not. And that whole test, repeat, tweak, repeat, it makes me insane.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because I fall into the same trap that so many people do. I put so much heart and so much work, and I don't understand, and it just didn't work. And who am I counting on? And which experts are you relying on? And the key, I think, that I found, and maybe having come out of corporate too, maybe this was something that showed up for you. You have to be careful when you come out of corporate and go into this entrepreneur space, because there's a language of corporate. There's a language of working in corporate spaces, and there's a language in working in entrepreneurial spaces. And while some of the words may be the same, the understanding is completely different. And so you may be thinking you're rocking along and you've gotten people who are helping you with stuff, and y'all are saying the same things and you think it's the same thing. And it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. Prime example, when I first started getting ready to do a course, they were like, well, you should be doing some ads. And I was like, okay. So I started doing some things on Facebook, and nothing happened. I got all these trolls. I mean, it was awful. Well, I found out I was actually boosting posts, not creating ads. I didn't know the difference. I hadn't been paying attention, right? I didn't know what that was. And I finally, as I was talking to an expert, I was like, okay, I need you to assume I know nothing. That humility piece, right? I need you to assume I know nothing, because if you're telling me something that I do understand already, I'll tell you and we'll move on. But I want you to start from Laurel is completely ignorant about all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we come out of corporate, especially if you've been in there a while, especially if you reach kind of senior roles, we assume that we get it. And that what they say about assuming, right? That can put you in a really bad place. And so that idea of that surprise of, it is iterative. You've got to have some patience and understanding your worst case scenario.
Yes.
Understanding your worst case scenario. I know I'm not going to be homeless and I'm not going to be on the street. I will have a place to live. I will be able to eat. I know that. Worst case scenario, I sell everything and I move home, right? That won't be ideal and I'll be mortified. But but that means I won't be on the street, right? So when you think about what your absolute worst case is, it kind of gives you some peace, right? To say, oh, okay, so I can take a little bit more risk.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more risk.
Mm-hmm.
What is, if you think about those surprises, I'm going to flip that question a little bit. What has been your biggest learning of this journey?
The biggest learning is let's see. I'm trying to kind of synthesize these thoughts a little bit.
Right. I get it.
Learning is I would say and this isn't a practical thing. I think this is more of like a spirit or soul thing.
Right.
I've learned to trust myself more, like to trust myself when it comes to my well-being, because when you're corporate, again, there's that mindset, whether or not we admit it, it's like, oh, the companies are, it's like they got me, they're taking care of me.
Yes.
So when you're not backed up by a company or an industry and it's just you've got to trust yourself, and you've got to trust the decision that you made to show up in this way. I mean, unless you lost your mind and you were like, you know what, I just went crazy for a moment. I'm just kidding. I need a job. But when you know that you know, then you really, you gotta trust. Because I mean, to be, quite transparent. As much as I know this is where I'm meant to be, there have been many a night where I have stayed up on Indeed and LinkedIn and applied for 1 million jobs. And no one ever wants my brilliant self. So I'm like, hey, hold up. Like, so these receipts don't matter? Like, like, and then you like humble yourself, like, okay, well, maybe I'm tripping. Let me just go in, apply for some of the manager jobs, whatever. Right. Like, nope. And I'm like, oh, and so you get to the point where, and I know for me, it was a very, very spiritual moment. And I heard divine intelligence, God, the universe, whatever you call it.
Yes.
Like, Tobi. And I'm like, stop looking for it was almost like that spanking. Stop.
Yes.
Stop looking for a job. And I'm like, again, here I go back to my old way of showing up in the world. That doesn't make sense. Like, you see this? Like, these bills come in every single month. And it's like, what do you mean? So it's like, and then maybe humility would be the second lesson, not thinking that I know and what I know is right. And it's like, can I give some deference to that intuition, which I know is right.
Yes.
So that's
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Because, the thing that I think people need to understand, and I think it's even happening more in corporate, if there's something good that came out of the pandemic, right? People really getting clearer on what they need, right? Not letting someone else tell them what they need, but them getting really intrinsically, right? Internally clear on what they need and what their deal breakers are and what they're willing and not willing to tolerate. Yes. Because before we all got forced to be home, right? And had to do all these other things, and companies had to really think about how and if they're bringing people back. We still, I think we're in that, while we may not have been in the era where you go, you get a job, you stay with that company for 30 years and you retire there. We had more movement than that. I think there was still kind of this tape that played that just be thankful you have a job. Just be thankful you have a job because of the recession of 2007, right? And all of these things that happen. If there's anything that's come out of the pandemic that may be good, is everybody going back to, no, what do I need? What do I need? And I am more than this job, right? I really am more than the job. I'm really good at my job. I may love my job. This is really what I want to do. But I, as a person, am more than this role or this title. And there's nothing like entrepreneurship or having to be at home all the time, right? And facing yourself all the time to make you address that head trash, that stuff that you didn't even know was there. Mm-hmm. That does wake you up in the middle of the night, right? Like, are you kidding me?
It's vicious and relentless. And again, life is about choices. So I'm like, I need to turn that down and crank up something else, because I have my orders just like anybody who is sensitive to hearing what they're meant to do. Those are your marching orders. So you want to make it hard? And I'm like, well, it's already hard now.
Right.
But it's like, but no, it's like, okay, so I need to look at apply a different lens to how I'm looking at this, and really just trusting myself, and trusting that I really am called. Like, I didn't make that up, right? I did persistently hear that thing tell me to show up in this way. So
that's really good. I remember right before the pandemic, some friends of mine and I went to the Oprah event that she was doing around the country. And so we went to the one in Dallas, and Tracy Ellis Ross happened to be the guest there, the headline guest. And one of the things she talked about was, this was right before her movie came out where she sang for the first time. And she said, we tell ourselves all of this stuff. And what I've recognized is the ability and built the ability to say, okay, I hear you. Now I need you to be quiet. That's enough. Go sit down, because here's where I'm going. So it's not so much that you deny that, because sometimes there is protection and safety in having that knowledge. There may be something that you're not hearing, but you need to be aware enough to listen to that and know when to tell that voice to be quiet. That's enough. You've had your space. You've been on stage. It's time for you to go backstage now, because we're going to move forward with the direction that we're moving in. And it takes a lot of trust, right? Trust in yourself. It takes a lot of belief in where you're going. It takes humility. It takes a willingness to be a learner, right? And it takes this willingness to be malleable and be able to shift and be flexible and adaptable, because I know what I thought I was going to be doing in this business in the very beginning. One of those things, I'm finally going to do something with it, but I, at one point, just completely shut it down. I'm like, why am I doing this? It absolutely does not give me joy. Yes, I'm good at it. It is, as the Big Leap says, it's in my zone of excellence. So I'm exceptional at doing that, but I hate it. So why am I doing this? Because I have a choice, because it's my business, right? As Tabitha Brown said, it's my business. So, it's kind of that whole thing that comes up when you're making decisions, and especially for entrepreneurs, but I think it's really translating into corporate now because of the pandemic, with people making these decisions about how they're going to show up. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's hard. It is hard work. That internal work is hard work, but there's so much on the other side of that is valuable and amazing and abundant, that if we can just give ourselves permission to do the hard work, the joy's on the other side of that.
Yes. And that hard work gets us out of the prison that limiting beliefs keep us in. It's like, know that you're meant for more. So I like to tell people, like for me, when I had like that regret, when I was leaving, I like to tell people, you don't have to wait, for the sirens to come. You don't have to be in the back of the ambulance. Like,
right.
I just fill in the blanks. It's like, no, you can make a choice. Is it easy? No, but it's I like when people say it's simple, but it's not easy. It's as simple as, well, you know what? I'm going to be who I'm meant to be.
Yes.
I'm going to trust that. And it doesn't have to be in this irresponsible, I'm marching in that office tomorrow.
Right.
I quit. It's like,
right.
Let's little exit strategy. Let's get clear on business. What do you want to do? Where are the customers?
Right.
Relationships, all of that. But it's something something happens energetically when you decide.
Yeah.
Like even with me, I had to decide to believe that, okay, I'm not going to end up homeless. There is no bridge
Right.
under which I once moved. And so that decision
Yes.
to stop believing that lie, it's like shift.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not even, that can't show up as fear anymore because I've
Right.
that. So it's just like we have to deal with the fears, and we have to, temper that with responsible, not
Mm-hmm.
fear-based, but responsible navigation of,
Yeah.
where's the funding? Have I simplified my life to the point where I have the room and
Yeah.
the funds to be able to explore this and give it time to organically become what it needs to become.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I love that. As we start to kind of wrap up the conversation, what would be a few pieces of key guidance that you would give to people that are listening? Because we've got folks that are early career, late career, retired, all over the globe, right? That are downloading, and thank you all that are downloading and listening to the Redless Perspective podcast, making career decisions, loving what they're doing, some hating what they're doing. It kind of runs the gamut. What kind of guidance would you give people about kind of their next step, or even sitting in where they are right now to decide what to do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I always lead with trust your intuition, because a lot of the times we go, going through our brain, throwing everything
Mm-hmm.
around, trying to find the answer, and it's already sitting right there. You already know that thing that you have peace
Yeah.
about, like you're not supposed to be in finance. You know that. You
Yeah.
don't need me to tell you that. You know
Right.
that. So what is it that you are going to
Yeah.
decide to do? And I guess maybe if I could back it all the way up and say the first thing, if you're thinking about shifting, or if you
Mm-hmm.
know that you're out of alignment with that greater purpose, or if you
Mm-hmm.
have these beautiful gifts that you don't get to share because you're doing something else, the first
Yeah.
thing I would suggest that you do is to work on your mindset.
Yeah.
I would suggest that if you can afford it, that you get a coach, that you
Yeah.
or you go to therapy or whatever you need to
Yes.
do to address those limiting beliefs, because your
Mm-hmm.
mindset, I mean, that quote, like you win or lose in your mind first, and the mind is the
Yes.
battlefield, all of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
You'll think yourself out of succeeding before
Mm-hmm.
the business goes belly up. It'll happen in here in your mind first. So I would just say prepare your mind, have a growth mindset, and be
Yeah.
inclined to possibility. Be it, do you believe
Yeah.
that we live in an abundant world, or are you in a scarcity mindset where you're like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't move because I'll lose if I move?
Right.
And just dealing with that first, and then trusting your gut, um,
Mm-hmm.
and then making a practical plan that you feel
Yeah.
good about,
I
and
love
then listen
that.
to
I
your
love that.
intuition again, because it's not
Yeah.
like a one-time thing. It's going to continue to
Right.
guide you. Stay tuned into it.
Yes, it's iterative, man. I'm telling you, this is just year 4 and it looks very different. My business looks very different. I mean, I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing a radio show. I never would have thought of that. That was not in my vision when I decided to do this at all, not even close. Right. But as you said, you follow your intuition, you work on your mindset, you trust, and you listen. You said that earlier. You listen to that divine download,
Yeah.
right? And there were so many things that lined up that said, Laurel, you need to do this show. You said you want to be visible. You said all these, and things start to line up. And if we pay attention, we will get that guidance.
Yes,
We will
absolutely.
get that guidance. We
It's
just have to follow it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't hurt you because you're mad at them.
Exactly.
What'd you say? Make a plan. Make a plan.
Plan. It's just like, okay, this isn't working out for me. Okay, good. So like December 2020, 2021, you're out. All right. Save all those paychecks, girl.
Right? Get ready.
Do something. Like prepare yourself, because this is rewarding. Like I don't care
Yes.
what I'm wearing now. I mean, I have my like on camera clothes, but it's like
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, I don't care. Just as long as I'm clothed.
Exactly. Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Labels. It's like I'm not walking around trying to look like I've achieved a certain level of success.
Yeah.
It's like I'm winning simply by sitting in this space is meant for me.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I'm winning by simply sitting in this space that's meant for me. Tobi, I knew this was going to be awesome. I just knew it. I knew it. I knew it. And there's so much that you have said to people, not only to kind of give them some guidance, but I think just the encouragement that we all have it inside if we'll just listen.
Yes.
We all have it inside if we'll just listen, and to listen to our intuition and not just what other people are telling us. Because we've got it. We've got it if we'll listen. We've got it if we'll listen.
Yep.
Oh,
instructions. Just like read the manual. Like listen.
yeah.
Audio manual. We don't even have to read. Just like, what you said?
Right. I love it. I love it. I am so excited and so honored that you agreed to be on my show. This is just amazing. And I thank you for the time. I know there's so much going on, and we do, as you said, we have choices. And so I thank you for having the choice and taking the choice to be a guest on the Rutledge Perspective. And I am thrilled, and we will have to do it again because it was amazing. And I'm already thinking of some stuff. I'm like, oh, we need to follow up on that question. So we'll just have to schedule the next one.
Well, thank you for having me, friend.
Absolutely. And just so you guys know, Tobi and I reconnected again, and the 2 pictures you see behind her, I've got those too. So see, kismet, connection. You just find those people and it just works. So thank you all for tuning in this week to the Rutledge Perspective. You'll see in the show notes a way to get in touch with Tobi. Definitely reach out to her if you're looking at trying to get your story out there, getting your voice heard, really showing up in the way that is authentically you. She is the person you need to reach out to. So look at those show notes. You'll be able to get in touch with her. Thank you again, Tobi. And we'll catch everybody next week. Take care. Bye. You've been watching the Rutledge Perspective. Thank you for tuning in. If we have given you a different perspective, or if you've learned something new that you hadn't thought about before, please subscribe to the Rutledge Perspective podcast where you get your favorite podcasts, and give us a like on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher. We really appreciate it. And your feedback is important as well, as we use that to inform our next episodes. You can also head over to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and download a freebie called Where's My Mojo that can really help you get out of your rut or maybe talk you back off that ledge of frustration. You can also find previous episodes of the Rutledge Perspective on laurelrutledge.com. I really appreciate your tuning in. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.